Hello and welcome to today's webinar on Learn How to Become a Physiotherapist in Canada. My name is Caitlin and I'm the founder of PT Exam Prep, and we will also have Amruta joining us as a guest speaker. So first I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself. Again, my name is Caitlin and I founded PT Exam Prep. I am a Canadian trained physiotherapist, meaning I did both my bachelor's and master's in Canada. I attended the University of British Columbia where I finished my master's in physiotherapy. Since then, I have been working in private orthopedics, where I work mostly with musculoskeletal conditions, and of course I work with PT Exam Prep. So we also have joining us today Amruta, and Amruta is going to be talking a little bit about the immigration process and her experience. If you do have any questions, again, feel free to email us or contact us. We will put our information at the end of the presentation. So I will pass it over to Amruta.
We'll talk about why Canada. So Canada has an easygoing lifestyle. Here I would like to mention one important thing, that Canadian government and the Canadian lifestyle actually values the family system a lot. That is similar to the one that we have in the Indian subcontinent. It's an important thing because in Canada you can immigrate as a family, so you don't have to really leave your family behind in India or in Dubai, but you can take your family along. So that's one good thing. The second thing is about the weather. It's cold and pleasant. I think all of us like cold weather, considering that India is a humid place to a great extent. We love cold places, don't we? So that's another thing. Next, considering the scope of for PTs. So it's excellent because your work is really valued. You can work with the physicians and you can discuss it with them, discuss the treatment, and your work is really valued. So, the scope for PTs is really good. So regarding licensure exam, we have two components. One is theory and the other is practical. Theory acts as a qualifying component, and then practical is the final licensure exam, after which you get your actual license to work in Canada. Visa and PR process, as all of us know that permanent residency is currently the in thing in Canada. So you take about 3 to 9 months to go through this process, and we'll talk about permanent residency in detail at a later point here in this seminar. Then about higher education and funding, I have got few people asking me if they can move to Canada for just study purpose. So if you're moving to Canada for study purpose, I would like to make a point that citizens and PR holders of Canada have the funding is directed more towards them. So if you have your PR, it acts as an added advantage, and the cost of education substantially reduces. You can pursue your master's and your PhD there, and it would be great. University of British Columbia, considered to be one of the greatest institutions we have as of today in physiotherapy, as well as University of Toronto, McGill, and University of Alberta. So considering the quality of universities that are there, and the higher education funding and scholarships you get, it is immensely beneficial for you to move to Canada. The average salary for any Canadian physiotherapist ranges from 50,000 to 80,000 Canadian dollars, and that would depend on the provinces. So if you are, say, in British Columbia, you might be, earning much more than you probably in Newfoundland or in Saskatchewan. So it depends from province to province of how much you earn. But an average salary would be somewhere like $50,000 to $80,000 yearly.
Yeah, and I can kind of add to this. So I am a physiotherapist working in Canada. Definitely the lifestyle or the vibe of being a physio here is very laid back. We generally have 2 shifts in the day. You can either work from 7 in the morning until 1 in the afternoon, or 1 in the afternoon until 8 in the evening. So it's really nice. It really allows for kind of that work-life balance. The scope of physiotherapists is really great in Canada as well. I do different skills like acupuncture, dry needling, so that's really awesome. And again, as far as the salary goes, there is that quite a bit of different range. And there is a different need for jobs depending on where you live. So say you live in the East Coast. An example of an East Coast city would be something like Toronto, Ottawa. Those places are looking more to hire people in the private sector, so like musculoskeletal. You generally get paid off of what's called a fee split. So meaning if you get paid $50 for a patient, you'll usually get paid 50% of that, so anywhere from around $25. And that market is a little bit more popular in the East Coast versus if you wanted to work in public, it's very hard to get a public job or a hospital job in Toronto. In general, it's harder to get a job in the East Coast. When you come out to the West Coast, we have spaces available in both private and public. You generally get paid a little bit more, so our appointments are usually around $70. So you would get paid 50% of that. And again, there's lots more jobs in more of the Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary areas. So if you do have the option to move to either place, you may want to think about going to the West Coast just because we do have so many more opportunities for positions out here. Alrighty.
We would be going through common abbreviations we would be coming during this webinar. We would first have PCE, so that's the Physiotherapy Competency Exam. As I mentioned before, it has two components. One is the clinical and other is the written component. CIC would be Canadian Immigration Council. So for all purposes related to immigration and jobs, you can visit CIC website. We would give you a link to that website. Then the third one is Canadian Alliance of Physiotherapy Regulators. So this is an organization which helps you create a substantial equivalence of your education to the Canadian education. So Canadian Alliance is a website where you will be visiting quite often. WES is World Education Services. This is particular organizations where you will do your credentialing for your immigration purpose. So I again emphasize CAPR is a institution where you would be doing your credentialing, which is related to your licensure purpose. But WES is where you would be doing your credentialing with regards to your immigration purpose. Next would be expression of interest and invitation to apply. So when we come with questions related to PR, we'll come across these two terminologies very often. So that's the reason we put up this abbreviation, so it becomes easier for the webinar ahead. So here are the important web links. You need not really write it down in your thing, because we are going to send you a post-webinar email which will have all the important information we are covering in this webinar. So first is cic.gc.ca, that's the Canadian Immigration Council website, which I talked about as immigration and job related prospects. Then the Alliance PT website is the credentialing and where you would apply for the PCE exam. PTAprep.ca is the PCE prep course, so that is the gold standard #1 course in Canada right now to prepare for your license exam. I'll tell you in detail about why it's the #1 later. And IELTS.org is a language test for immigration. So these are the basic information that we can now dive into the actual webinar.
Okay.
So here are a few of the steps that we thought, where we start thinking of Canada and the first day of our job in Canada. So the complete process in between, I have put it down into 5 steps. So one is credentialing, next is the PCE, third is the licensure, fourth is the PR process, and fifth is job. So for credentialing, you need to submit documents to the Canadian Alliance. You need to finish all your deficit courses. And third, you have to you get a final assessment report with your educational equivalence from the Canadian Alliance. Only after you get that report, you are eligible to write the PCE. And for PCE, you will have to check eligibility dates. You will have to make an application. So there's an application form on the website of Canadian Alliance. You'll have to download that, pay the corresponding fees for the component, and apply for a tourist or visitor visa with the CIC, and prepare for your exam. Preparing for the exam is very important because you have only 3 attempts at this exam, and it is imperative that you make the right decision to take up some guidance, because there are people who have given it for twice and thrice and have not cleared the exam, and I'll come to the Indian stats at a later point for sure. So it is imperative that you pass the theory exam and then go ahead with your practical exam. Once you pass both the exams, you are eligible to get a license. So you become a registered physical therapist with the provincial physiotherapy regulatory body, and once you gain a license, you can apply for your PR process. You express your interest of applying for a PR with the Canadian government. They send you an invitation that, okay, now your profile looks good to us, why don't you come ahead and apply for your PR. So that's called as invitation to apply, ITA. And once ITA comes in your hand, within 3 months you need to submit all your documents, and you, within about 6 months time frame from your ITA, you do get your PR. So this is the PR process. We will talk in detail about each of these steps ahead. Apart from that, there is job. So once you have a license, you and your PR process, I don't think there is anything stopping you from getting a good job in Canada. You need to pass your interview, and then you're all set to start working in Canada.
Okay, so actually we see your question, but we will get to it after we just get through credentialing, so just in a few moments.
So regarding the credentialing process, now what I have done is I have visited the alliancept.org website, and I have taken certain screenshots which I have put up as image, so that it becomes easier for you to go through this website more effectively. So while you would need to type out alliancept.org, the website that is for the Canadian Alliance, you see that there would be something called as becoming credentialed. So when you click on that, you move to the next page, which would look like something like the next image, okay, the second image. So there you will have credentialing, becoming credentialed, taking the exam, licensure, so all information. This website is jam full of information. You should visit this website and effectively look into all the information that they have. It's wonderful. So we'll next move to credentialing overview. It talks about why you need to be credentialed, how can the credential process go on, what are the documents you require in order to be credentialed, and they are actually trying to secure or protect the Canadian citizens and PR holders and people living in Canada at large, so that the healthcare system is not burdened with extra pay that they would have to, the government pays for all the healthcare system, so they wouldn't have that extra burden. So the credentialing fees is about $1,035, and this is effective since Jan 1st, 2017, and it keeps revising. So you would have to, whenever you are planning to apply, just go to this website and check your credentialing fees, and only then you make the DD which you are, going to submit at the Canadian Alliance. Because before 2016 it was somewhere like $990, and now it's $1,035. So it keeps changing. You'll have to check through the website. So next we move on to country profiles. As right now we have maximum people from India. So what I have done is that I have taken country profile. I selected India as a country, okay, and then I clicked on Go. So when I clicked on Go, I got a list of colleges which are in India, and I just picked up one of it, and just to show you how it looks like. So the university I picked up is MS Ramaiah Medical College. The name of the degree is Bachelor of Physiotherapy. So what information that does this give? That the education at MS Ramaiah Medical College is entry to practice physiotherapy education at Bachelors of Physiotherapy, and we complete all the supervised clinical practice hours which are required by, which are deemed necessary by the Canadian Alliance. So this makes it easier for us to apply for credentialing once you know that your education level is entry to practice, and if you have the substantial requirement for clinical practice hours. However, if you do not have if you don't see these green lines which are there on your screen, then there's nothing to panic about. You just need to contact your college and ask them to give you supporting documents which would fulfill this requirement. So when they do it, it becomes easier for the Canadian Alliance also to do your credentialing process. The third image that you see here is just a self-assessment readiness tool, which is a quick link which is present at the Alliance website. You also have a cost estimator, so you can estimate like what is the amount that you would have to pay for the credentialing process, for your application, for your exam, for written component, practical component, to get your license. So all of that you can check it out at a cost estimator, right? So we'll be addressing many questions. I know that there are lots of questions on the chat box. We'll be definitely addressing each of it after each section, right? So credentialing requires you to submit certain documents, and each case that you submit at the Canadian Alliance will give you a set of documents which you require to submit at the Alliance. But these are the common documents which they ask for, and there are two kinds of documents. One which is sent by the applicant, and other which is sent by the university. So applicant requires to send the following documents. One is the completed application form, which requires them to start with the Canadian credentialing, and a fee of $1035. You can pay this $1035 using DD, credit card, and a money order, so any of it. So these are the three methods in which you can pay. Notarized copy of your birth certificate, proof of legal name change. So all married women there, please provide a proof of legal name change, and passport, notarized copy of your passport. 2 recent photographs signed and dated. 2 recent means in the last 6 months. Okay, so on the flip side of the photograph, you need to sign and date it. Okay. Then you're required to submit your national license or your membership card, a notarized copy of that, all your degree certificates, diplomas, and any level of education, including your secondary level education. A notarized copy of your major thesis or your evidence-based practice, research that you have done as part of your bachelor's or your master's needs to be submitted as well. A current resume and letter of authorization is an optional thing, but suppose now you want somebody else to take care of your credentialing process, you need to give them a letter of authorization that would give accessibility to your file in the Alliance. Otherwise, Alliance doesn't disclose your file information to anybody else, right? The other set of documents which would be going is from university. For university, they have a separate thing called as a document request form. So each time you go to your principal to ask any document, you have to fill in a document request form that would be stamped and signed by your principal. And once that happens, only then you get your documents, right? So document request form is number 1. Second is transcripts and mark sheets. Now, this is one question which I get very often, that what does transcript mean? In India, transcript means a separate document which we would get, but in Canada it just means your 4-year mark sheets or your 8th semester mark sheets. Okay, so whatever the mark sheets you have, submit it to your university. They would stamp and give it in a sealed envelope, and that has to be sent by the university directly to the Canadian Alliance. Third is your syllabus. Okay, fourth is your internship completion certificate, and fifth is your language proficiency test. Regarding syllabus, if you have a precedent case, that means, say, like there are many students who are from MS Ramaya Medical College, and I'm from the same college. So I'm a precedent case, okay? So I have already done my credentialing, so maybe students who are going from the same college do not require to submit their syllabus in many cases. But as I again mentioned it is case-to-case based, file-to-file based, and please make sure that you submit all documents, these as well as the others which are requested by the credentialing officer at the Canadian Alliance. Only then, after submission of all documents, your credentialing process starts. Once your credentialing process starts, it takes about roughly 3 to 6 months to finish your credentialing. 3 months, not 6, but 3 months to finish your credentialing, and then they point out various deficits that you have in your Indian education or other, like say somebody studied in a UK college, so they would have some deficits there and here and there. But then at the end, your education has to be deemed substantially equivalent to the Canadian education, and that's when you get a letter which states that now you are eligible to write your PCE exam. Only then you can write your PCE exam. So credentialing is a very important step. I hope everybody has got good information here and would be free to take up questions, I think, next.
Okay, so we're going to go through questions. I just want to give you a reminder that we will be sending you an email out afterwards. And so if you guys do have any questions, again, you can follow up via email. But we are going to go to the question slide. And Rita, I'm just going to read the questions off to you, okay? So do we pay for PCE practical with written? Is it compulsory?
No, we pay for PCE written component first. So once you clear your PCE written component, you can pay for a practical component after that. But it's up to you. There's an option where the Canadian Alliance says that you can pay for both the components together and give it at your a date of your choice. But usually what people do is they pay for the written component first, and once they clear the written component, they pay for the practical component. So
and
that's the general.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. You know, the written component is a very difficult exam to pass. So you could be trying to pass it for, 2-3 attempts, which could take you 1 to 2 years. So having paid that extra amount for the practical, it makes more sense to kind of first pay for the written and then for the practical. Okay. Does experience in the teaching field count?
Teaching, their experience in the teaching field would count in the sense that, say you are applying for a research-based job, then it would help. If you're talking for credentialing per se, then no, it wouldn't count in there. But definitely it would not be a waste. You will you would find it helpful when you are doing your written component exam or a practical component, because when you're teaching, you are always updated with the latest trends in physiotherapy, and that's what the Canadian Alliance is looking for: basics of physiotherapy, but still with the latest trends. That's what the Canadian Alliance look for.
Awesome. Okay, in applying for your, is there an age limit?
There is not an age limit to apply for credentialing or for your immigration. You can apply at any time. The only thing with age is that in your immigration process, there is certain points given to certain age groups. So say if you're below 30, then you are scoring a particular higher point. So if you are in between 30 to 35, you are scoring a little lower on your immigration points. And you need to fulfill certain points so that you become eligible for PR. The recent pick which was made in, I think, about August. So that closed at about 438 score. Okay, so that's a comprehensive rating scale. It's a complex scale which they use for Canadian immigration. But I'm sure your immigration consultants can guide you more on that. However, yes, age does matter in terms of immigration, but never in terms of credentialing.
Okay. What is the IELTS score that is required?
The IELTS score which you require for immigration is, I think all these are questions related to immigration. Yeah, I'll answer those. So so IELTS score which you require is 8 in listening, and all the other components of IELTS you require a 7+. So when you get a minimum of 8 in listening and 7+ in all the rest of the 3 components like speaking, reading, and writing, you become eligible to get the highest score for your on your language. Okay, so there are various components on which you are scored. So on the language component, you would get the highest score if you get 8 in listening and 7 in rest of it.
Okay. I'll let you answer this one too, Amrita. Can we give the written component from India?
No, we need to go to Canada and give the exam. So there are about 30 sites, exam sites in Canada. You have the liberty to choose your site. The earlier you select a site, the better, because Canadian exams get filled up very quickly, considering that many PTs are moving to Canada and the immigration process is extremely simplified as compared to the rest of the world. We might be knowing that the Australian stop the work visa. US is making it difficult for us to migrate to US, but Canada is one country which is welcoming you with open arms, and that's the reason the Canadian exams are always filled up very quickly. So you need to apply for your choice of date and your site in Canada, and you need to go there and give your exam. You can't give it from India.
Well, there's a few things about that made me very happy. Number one, I am in Canada, and I do agree. We are welcoming you with open arms. Canada is such an amazing place to live, so that's good. The other thing that I will just kind of touch on as far as can you give the written component in Canada, we have lots of people who are in our courses who have done all of their preparation in India, so they will do everything they need to do to finish their credentialing and apply, as well as prepare for the exam. And then sometimes they'll just come here for that kind of day of the exam, but they'll maybe come, 4 or 5 days before and leave the day after. And then they will do all their preparing for their practical exam in India as well. So there is that option too for you, that you can prepare in your home country, but then come here to take the exam.
Yes.
Right? And actually, that's kind of what you are doing, right? You are preparing in Mumbai, but you will be coming to Canada to take the exam, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, so next question is, so basically we can apply for credentials while we are in our own country.
Absolutely. So we can apply, we have to apply. Actually, we have to apply for our credentials when we are in our country, so that once you are in Canada, you have your PR in your hand, or you have your credentialing report in your hand, and you are all set to apply for the exam and start working as soon as possible. Because when you start applying for credentialing after going to Canada, it becomes a little difficult, because you would have to, say, wait for 6 months to finish your credentialing, and then you'll have to apply for your exam. That may take about a couple of months, and then you prepare for it, and it just goes on. So you may waste 1 year of being in Canada but not working as a physiotherapist. It doesn't matter. It doesn't make sense to me that you live in Canada for 1 year and you have a qualified degree, a proper degree, which says that you have done your Bachelor of Physiotherapy, a Master's of Physiotherapy, but you're not working as physiotherapist. I think we all should finish our credentialing beforehand, so that when we reach Canada, we are eligible to give the exam and get set to work.
Awesome. Okay, the minimum IELTS academic score for credentialing.
We do not give IELTS academic exam. We give IELTS practical. The general component, right? So for immigration. So in that case, it's, as I mentioned, it's 8 in speaking and 7 in the rest of it. 8 in listening and 7 in the rest of it. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, if you want to clear the practical exam, which course should I choose?
Rachna, are you talking about the preparation course?
And what city, Rachna, do you live in? In India. Okay. So I can kind of talk to this, and Amrita. So there is only one course that offers a virtual practical course, and that is ours through PT Exam Prep. If you are thinking about moving to Canada to prepare, then that does open your options a bit. But will you be preparing purely in India and then coming to Canada to take the exam? Yes, okay, awesome. Yeah, so your option is to take the virtual courses through PT Exam Prep. I'll talk a little bit about those courses later, but we do offer virtual and face-to-face options, but that virtual option does allow people to prepare from their own home country. So we'll talk about that a little bit in more detail. So we're just going to go talk about how to apply to the PCE, and then Rachna, we'll get to your question quite soon.
So how to apply for the PCE exam, right? So I said there are exam dates and exam sites. So PCE exam, the qualifying component, written component, is administered about 6 times a year. Okay, so there are 6 exam dates that you have for the written component and 2 exam dates that you have for the practical component. And there are about 30 exam sites all over Canada. So you can select a choice, a date of your choice and a site of your choice, and you make sure that you check the application deadline. It's all on the Canadian Alliance website. It's given in detail, so you can check the application deadline. So say now you want to apply for December 4th exam. The application deadline would be September 25th. So it's at least a couple of months in advance. Okay, so at least 8 to 9 weeks before you need to apply for the exam, and fill an application form for the corresponding component. Give the required payment, whichever is necessary. So the 2018 fee structure is 972 Canadian dollar for written component and $1,760 Canadian dollars for practical component. You need to attach all the documents which are mentioned on the application. Yeah,
Oh, hi. I was just going to say, do you mind
yes,
slowing down just a tiny bit for us?
sure, sure.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
So, yeah. So we can apply using the application form which is there on the Canadian Alliance website. You need to attach all the documents which are mentioned on the application form. You need to pay 972 Canadian dollars for written component, 1,760 for practical component. As I mentioned earlier, payment has to be done only by DD, money order or credit card only. They do not accept debit cards. And the booking confirmation is sent by the Canadian Alliance 7 weeks before the exam. Many times, people ask that what kind of visa can you go on to give the exam if you don't have a PR in hand. So you can use a tourist visa or a visitor visa to go and give your exam. It is mandatory to carry two IDs. That is your driver's license, passport, and PR card. These are the only three IDs which are valid there, and you cannot carry your PAN card or other forms of IDs there. So results are declared about 30 to 45 days after the exam is done on the Canadian Alliance website.
Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about what is the PCE. So the PCE is a little bit different from most exams you have probably taken in your home country. So how it differs is this is a purely multiple choice exam, meaning that you will have vignette style questions and standalone questions. So vignette style questions are questions that have a paragraph and then they are followed up with multiple choice questions. Okay. We also have standalone multiple choice questions, which are just one question with your options for multiple choice. And there are usually around 200 questions on the written exam, and you have approximately 4 hours to complete the exam. We have main competency areas that we assess, the first one being the neurological system, cardiorespiratory system, neuromusculoskeletal system, and multi-system. They are each given different percentages, and those are given in the blueprint, which we'll talk about. But in general, neuromusculoskeletal takes up the largest component, around 50% of the exam. After you take your written exam, the results will be available approximately 4 to 6 weeks after your exam. So it actually is quite a long time to wait for your results, but it usually isn't any sooner than 4 weeks. So we're going to do an example of a vignette style question here for you so you can see what it's like. So Monica is a 65-year-old patient with COPD. She has a 40-year history of smoking. She lives alone and does not exercise. Her house is a 2-story home located in a rural community. So that would be an example of your vignette. Now the multiple choice question that comes from that is, given her history, which of the following risk factors likely led her to develop COPD? 65 years old, female, 40-year smoking history, or no exercise. So I'm going to get you to write your answer, either A, B, C, or D, in the chat box for us. I'm just going to give you about 30 seconds to do this. Great, I see answers coming in. A few more seconds here. Good job, guys. Okay, so in that question, we're looking for C, 40-year smoking history. So good. This is an example of definitely an easier question, but I really do want you guys to start kind of practicing vignette-style questions. It's very hard to find vignette-style questions, so when you do, try to get the most out of them, okay? So next is the practical exam. The practical exam is 16 OSCE stations. OSCE is a type of station that evaluates your skills as a physiotherapist. There are 8 stations that are what we call 5 by 5, meaning 5 minutes of it is practical and 5 minutes of it is follow-up theoretical questions. There also are 8 stations that are 10-minute stations, and these stations are purely practical. They may ask you follow-up questions verbally, but there is nothing to write. Again, the main competency areas are the same as in the written. The results of this are a little bit longer, so they normally take around 10 to 12 weeks after your exam. So we're looking usually at around 3 months after the exam that you're going to find out. So an example OSCE style question would be, Monica is a 65-year-old patient with COPD. She has a 40-year history of smoking. She lives alone and does not exercise. Her house is a 2-story home located in a rural community. Teach Monica how to start a walking program. So in the chat box, I want you just to write different components that you would want to cover in this station. Okay, not seeing a lot of replies from people, but what we're looking for in a walking program is we, of course, want to give her a scale that she can use to assess her breathlessness. So Borg, awesome. We want to give her examples of how she can start exercising, so where she should walk, walk outside with other friends, make sure you go to a place that is public, go to a place where you have a bench where you could sit down, do a proper warm up and cool down, give her a time duration for how long she should be walking for. Say for the first time, walk on a flat surface. You could also teach her things like SOS for SOB in case she does get short of breath. So this is just a very, very kind of top level or high level going over what you would do in a station. In the courses, of course, we go over in-depth ways to answer this question. I just want to get you guys starting to think of what you do need to prepare for when you're taking this exam. Okay, so which exam should I write? This is one of the most common questions that I get. People wonder, are there popular times to write? So for example, in this past year, we had exams in February, we had exams in May, April, July, September, December. So quite a few exams. There isn't a time that I would say is most appropriate to take it. The exam is what's called bell curved, meaning you are getting graded against everyone else who is writing. So people do get afraid to write at the same times as the Canadian students. But the Canadian students kind of split up times that they're writing. We looked into this earlier this year to see when do Canadian students write, and we generally find that the West Coast Canadian students write earlier, so they'll do something like July or September, and we have found that we actually have some people on the East Coast that do April, May. So if you wanted to pick a time where maybe not as many Canadian students are taking the exam, you could look for something like March or December, but again, we have found there are some Canadian schools that write at that time too. So what I usually say to that question is write at a time that is best for you. Write at a time that you have time to take off work, that you have help if you have children, that you are able to sit down and focus. The September exam is not always the busiest because we have really nice summers in Canada, and people sometimes aren't studying in that time, so sometimes September is nice. But truthfully, it really doesn't matter. There seems to be an equal amount of people who pass or who fail at each of those times. Okay, so schedule leading up to the exam. So here's some things that you need to think about again with these times, or when should you write. So are you working? Working is something that of course is going to help you if you are in the physiotherapy world of working, but it also is going to lead to a decreased amount of time for studying. So make sure you have time to study. Okay, we'll go over that a bit more. Do you have children? Children of course are going to take away from that, so that could also change how long you need to prepare for the exam. And of course, how long since you last opened a textbook. So if you have been out of school for more than 2 to 3 years, studies have shown that you have a lesser chance of passing on your first time. So the best time to prepare, of course, is right after school. That knowledge is fresh, and you already have those skills or those studying skills that you can put towards this exam. Okay, so what is the average you think you need to prepare for the written and for the practical? So this again is really hard. We have some students who come and prepare for 2 months and pass. We have other students who prepare for 6 months and don't pass. But in general, I usually say for the written exam, you want to give yourself 4 months of solid full-time studying. Okay, if you are taking a course, you can usually get that to around 3 to 4 months because you have a lot more focus on what you need to study. If you are not taking a course, then you're looking at about 6 months plus of studying. Sometimes I even do suggest to people who do our mock exam and we see what their score is, we'll sometimes say, you know, you need a year before you can write the exam. And again, this is with you know, part-time to full-time studying. For the practical, it really depends on how you did on your written. If you took a course for the written, if you passed with good scores for the written, then we're looking at the practical again at around 3 to 4 months with taking a course, and 5 to 6 months if you're not taking a course. How do you think this changes with a course? I hope that I answered that for you guys as well. So how to start studying. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to read the essential guides for candidates. You can see it kind of here on the side for the Canadian Alliance. It will go over your structure, it will go over who is eligible, how the exam is marked, and sample questions. These sample questions are great. They're vignette style questions, so that gives you an idea of what you need to do to study for this exam. Next is pick your exam dates, which we kind of went over. Register for a course, which of course is very important so you can cut down that studying time and pass on that first attempt. And then make a study schedule, which we'll talk a little bit more about. So how to start studying. The big thing you want to do is you want to take a look at the exam blueprint. This screenshot here is taken from the Alliance's webpage. It outlines the structure and includes the main areas of practice. This can give you a good idea of what type of content areas will be on the exam. If you sign up for our course at PT Exam Prep, we do have a course manual. It's very detailed, and that is another type of blueprint that you can use to study off of. It does go over all the main areas that the Alliance does highlight, and it also does weigh those areas as well, so there'll be more musculoskeletal content than, say, something like cardiorespiratory. However, it does give you detail in all those areas. For the PCE candidate video, it's going to go over how you can prepare, and it also goes over the 2 different types of exams. You have your FAQs, your most common candidate errors, which are really important to read. And again, when you take a course, you go over these a lot. Tips for the quiz, and then your key reference list. And this key reference list is very important. If you take a look at that bottom point of the screen, this is going to tell you which books we think that you should use to study. And again, this is Alliance, but us at PT Exam Prep, we give you an even smaller list of books that we think you should use, because there are so many books out there that it's impossible for you to read and memorize all of them. So we give you a shorter, more realistic amount of books to read. So what do we think you need to know? So depending on which course you're registering for, they each have a list of recommended course books. For us, we highly suggest Kisner and Kobe, McGee, Reed and Chung, O'Sullivan. Those are our big ones. Reed and Chung is one that I would definitely get. A lot of people don't get that one. It is really important for cardio-resp. Okay. So study schedule, we're going to talk a little bit about that. So for the written, again, you want to read through the blueprint and work through each topic. if you are taking our course, and you would read through our course manual and go through each topic that way. So we have our course manual that is 300 pages. Say you had 4 months that you were giving yourself to study. What I usually say is start studying that kind of 4 months before taking the course. You can do 3 months or 2 months, whatever works best for you. But you want to make sure that you are doing your first read through of the information before you do take a course. Our courses are very difficult. They're meant for students who have put in a bit of studying. Because what we want to do is we want to find where your areas of weakness are, and we want to give you things to work on. So if you come to us without having prepared at all, you're going to find the course very hard and you're going to fall behind very quickly. So for example, you take the course manual, you'll give yourself either 4 months, we'll go with 2 months is another option, which is approximately 120 days. You would then divide the pages in the manual by the amount of days you have. So it works out to be about 2.5 pages per day. If you're giving yourself 2 months, you may have 5 pages a day that you need to go through in the manual. We also suggest that you write your own vignette style questions at the end of each day. This will give you a better preparation so that after the course you can actually go through those vignette style questions and quiz yourself. And that's another great way of getting a database of those questions. Find someone to prepare with, okay? This is super, super important. You do need a study partner through this. This is a very tough exam, and you need someone to, complain that you've been studying for so long. You need someone to give you different tips and tricks of things that they've learned how to study. And there really is no excuse for not finding someone. There are tons of groups on Facebook. We have students who are paired up with people in Australia and India. We have people that are in the Philippines and Canada. We see all types of people come together to work together to pass this exam, and we really, really encourage that for you. Again, when you join a class, you are going to get to meet students who are also preparing, but we do encourage you, as soon as you decide that you are going to write, join one of the Facebook groups, find someone you're studying with, and register together to take a course. That'll be a lot easier for you. You can contact us and we can connect you with other students who are preparing for the same exam too if you are having a hard time. So that's another option. Okay, so for the practical, again, my information is fairly similar. So find a study group. Again, you really, really need to find a study group for the practical. This is all about education, practicing hands-on, working through stations. And so you need this group to build up that knowledge with. Work through the course booklet. Again, we have a different course book for the written as for the practical, and that's just because the information is totally different from exam to exam. So we want to make sure that we're giving you more theoretical based information for the written, and for the practical, we're giving you more information that is framework based, how to approach a station, and how to use that template going forward with stations. We encourage people to work in groups of 3 for the practical. You have a physiotherapist, an actor, and a marker. So the physiotherapist will go through the station and do the actions on the actor, and the marker will be the one standing around seeing what they're doing. Now, we talk a little bit about more of how this group dynamic works, but what I really, really encourage students to do is stick with this 3-type person group best. Sometimes people don't like being the actor or the marker, but truthfully the marker is the most important kind of position to be in. And the reason for that is that you actually get a chance to assess what they're doing, internalize it, and evaluate what you would do different. And you also get to plan how you would do the station differently. So maybe you would organize the room differently, or maybe you would organize how you would go and approach that station differently. And that type of studying, that kind of introspective look at how you would approach a station, has been shown to be one of the best ways that you can learn. So really take advantage of that marker role. And again, be hard on each other. You're not helping anyone out for the written or practical if you are allowing someone to get by with minimal knowledge. So make sure that you're saying, why? Why does that happen? Give me more information. Okay. So we're going to talk a bit about courses here. So I highly, highly encourage you to join a training program with individual attention, tutorials, mock exams, and feedback. Mock exams being for the written. There are lots of courses in Canada. If you look up PCE courses, you will find them. However, what we really stress to you, and being kind of the gold standard course in Canada, we do stress that you take a course who has had Canadian students teaching it. So, meaning that they have done both their undergraduate and master's in Canada and have passed the exam. Okay? These are the people who know the tips and tricks. Us as Canadian students are bred from the time that we go to school to pass this exam. Day one, we know what we need to do to pass this exam. Okay, so join a program who has their educators who have completed their training in Canada. Also, join a program where you are not one student of 40 or 50. There are programs at the University of Toronto, the University of British Columbia, and the Alliance actually does suggest these courses. The Alliance cannot suggest any private courses, such as us. They can only suggest university courses. Now, the downside to those courses is you are one student. If you're someone who is completely lost and you don't even know where to start, that might be a good option for you to take that course. However, if you're someone who has started studying and you're needing help kind of on a higher level to pass, that's when you come to us, okay? Again, you do get one-on-one feedback. We give you mock exams. We give you lots of different areas to work on and study. Versus when you take these bigger university programs, they don't really give you any individualized feedback. If you do want individualized feedback, you have to pay on top of that course, which is already usually around $1,500 to $1,600, and you pay for individual tutoring hours, which are around $100 an hour. Okay, so our course has about a 90% pass rate for students who attend all sessions. If you look at the Canadian Alliance's website, you'll see that they actually have a 43% pass rate for the written and 48% for the clinical. So definitely something that you can see when you take a course, you're just giving yourself that much more of a chance of passing. The courses are expensive. For us, our course is 2,000 Canadian dollars. But if we go back to that slide when we talk about how much you make in Canada, you know, you'll make that back within a week of working once you do come to Canada and start working. You know, if you do pass the written, you'll find out your marks in 4 to 6 weeks, and then you can prepare for the written, and you can be done your credentialing within, or your licensing process of passing the exam, you know, within a few months, which is amazing. But if you do fail, so say you fail the June practical exam, your next time to write will be in November, since there's only 2 exams a year. So you're losing almost a year of working. So very, very important to take those courses if you are someone who needs to start working soon or need to start making money soon. Okay, so who is PT Exam Prep? So we work specifically with international trained physiotherapists and Canadian physiotherapists to pass our exam. Okay, our team is much bigger. That's in the photo there, but that was last year when we did kind of an update on our training program. All of our teachers are trained in Canada, and we all have extensive experience in training. So every teacher who works with us has to go through a diligent training program that is over 8 weeks. Okay, so these teachers know how to teach you. So that's kind of the basis of who PT Exam Prep is. And I'm going to take a little time here and I'm going to answer any questions that you do have. So any questions, please post in the chat box for me. Okay, doesn't look like we have any questions there. So Maruta, I'm going to get you to talk. Oh, okay. What is the cost of the virtual training course offered by you for the PCE? And where will the practical training be? Okay, so I'll answer the first question. So our courses are 2,000 Canadian dollars. If you do sign up with a partner, the cost of the course goes down to $1,800 each. Our courses are all listed on our website at ptprep.ca. But the training course for the virtual runs for 10 weeks long, all online, 3 hours each, and you have 1 other student. So it's 2 students to 1 teacher, which is very low class ratio, obviously, so you'll get a lot of feedback. Where will the practical training be? We have multiple locations. We have locations in Ottawa that actually start up this Sunday, and I think that's the only course that we have a spot left in. We have Toronto, we have Vancouver, and of course we have all around the world via our virtual classes as well. If you do have more specific questions about courses or do want to sign up, just send me an email afterwards or reply to the email that we send to you, and we can set up a time to chat and figure out what's the best time for you. So Shatel and Kushbu, do you mind telling me which exam for the practical you're preparing for? Are you preparing for November or June next year? June next year. Perfect. Awesome. Yeah, that's a good idea at this point. And where do you live, Kushbu? Do you live in Toronto, Vancouver? As you answer that, I'll just answer this other question. So do you think it is practical to work as a PT assistant? Okay, so you applied for PR, so you're still in your home country. So yeah, you can definitely apply via, you can definitely prepare via the virtual course, so anywhere in the world, or you can do it in those hub cities in Canada. So the next question was, do you think it's practical to work as a PT assistant and study for the PCE side by side? I actually love this. I think working as a PT assistant is great. It obviously depends on how much you're working, how many other things you are balancing in your life. But for a job, that is a great job. It's going to give you lots of hands-on experience. You're going to learn the rules of PT assistants. There's often questions on PT assistants. And it really does give you that chance to, again, see and be kind of within that field of physio. So as long as you're not, working too much and not studying, good option. So when would it be ideal to take a course for the virtual course if we were to take the exam in June? Good question. So I usually suggest that students take the virtual course kind of fairly close to the exam or far away from the exam. So two totally different answers. But our courses usually end about a week or two before the actual exam. So next year it would probably start March, April, May. So we'd be looking around the middle of March that it would start. Alternatively, we have classes that start around the middle of September, so coming up here pretty soon. Those courses do prepare you more for the November practical. However, some students prefer to take it really early, and then they use those months after the course is finished to refine their knowledge. So it depends on what kind of studier you are. If you're someone who likes to prepare far in advance, what you can do is you can either sign up for a course now and kind of get that information of what you need to know, refine your knowledge after. You could sign up now for a course that starts in March, but get all the course materials and start to learn all that information now so that when you are in the course, you are quick and you understand everything. Or you can sign up in March and get a spot for a course. And of course, that would be, you would be in full-time study from March until June. Hopefully that answers that question for you. Again, if it's more of a case-by-case question, then we can definitely talk over the phone as well. So how easy is it for a foreign-trained physiotherapist to get hired as a PT assistant? Truthfully, I don't know the answer to that. I can definitely say that it really depends on where you are living. I know that Calgary, Alberta, Vancouver, it is easier to get hired. Where it is harder in the East Coast, places like Toronto. But I truly don't know too much about that. Amruta, do you know much about that?
Once you pass your theory exam, so it becomes you can register with your provincial regulator and work as a PT resident. So PT resident allows you to work with a PT mentor, and that makes it easier for you to practice for practical component and finally work as a PT. So how easy or difficult it is will depend on, as Ms. Proctor said, from city to city, because Toronto as such right now has many people flowing in from different parts of the world to Toronto. So they have a lot of options there. So it may get difficult in Toronto. But say in Calgary or other areas, it get easier because they don't have too many PTs going to that part of Canada. So it depends from place to place.
Exactly. Okay, so those questions seem like they're good. So, Amrita, I'll pass it back over to you.
Thank you so much. Now, I would like to just share my experience with PT exam prep. So, how did I come in touch with Ms. Proctor is via two of my juniors who are right now in Canada. I was looking for a course, a written component prep course in Canada, and I found that each of the courses has about like one tutor and say minimum of 20 students with that one tutor. So you do not get individualized attention, and I wanted somebody who can give attention to me for my during my preparation and solve my queries really quick. So I got excellent feedback from my juniors about PT exam prep, and the team of instructors Ms. Proctor has is excellent as well. I took a written course with PT exam prep, and I just finished it on August 30th. So I'm the latest one to finish it. It has about 8 sessions, which comprise of about 3 hours of rigorous training session each. In that 3 hours, you are asked a lot of questions, and you have to answer those questions. So if you do not read the course manual and come, you would be blank there. So it encourages you to read the course manual, go for that 3 hours of rigorous training, use your brain as much as possible. You have to answer questions which are asked by instructors. It's a lot of rigorous training there. So what I like about PT exam prep is it is a concept-based teaching approach. Canadian exam questions are a lot of concept-based. So they're perfect for PCE. PT exam prep, the way it's structured is perfect for PCE. Okay. The best thing about PT exam prep, it has a 3:1 student-teacher ratio, which I myself looked into, and I encourage all of you also to look into. There is no course in Canada giving you a 3:1 student-teacher ratio. That's excellent point there. Then there is unlimited support via emails, phone, and Skype. Your tutors are present even after the the session gets over to answer your queries. And there is a wowsome course manual. You have to go through that 300 to 400 pages manual which PT exam prep gives you. It's in tabular form. It has all the information which is required. In fact, I asked Ms. Proctor, I had asked Ms. Erin if I could read only the course manual and get through the exam. So she told me, no, you can't do that. You have to read other material also. But I found the manual so good that I felt that anybody could just read through that manual and get through the exam. It's that good. I encourage you to actually go through the manual once you join the PT exam prep course and see for yourself how good it is. The other thing I also want to point out is a PC style mock exam. PT exam prep is the only course, and I say it because I have checked it yesterday, that it's the only course which has mock exams, 2 mock exams that you can get at about $50 each, as low as $50. So, because I was looking for mock exams myself, I wanted to give mock exams and see if I am prepared well for the exam or not. But there are other courses, and they do not have mock exams. So this is a course which has mock exam. It has a guided exam review and detailed feedback with your instructor on each and every question that you give in your exam. So it has 200 questions which you give during the course, and about 200 questions after the course. So altogether 400 questions, and I think that's a lot to prepare. So PT exam prep is an overall course where you will feel that you are confident before you go for an exam. I feel confident right now. I hope I deliver it accordingly in my exams, and I get good results. But I feel confident. That's what you require before going for an exam, right? Be confident.
Good. Okay. So before we just go on to this licensure point, I just want to see, does anyone have any other questions? Do master's degree done in India hold any value there? Amrita, maybe I'll let you talk to that.
Master's degree done in India holds value everywhere. What the Canadian system is looking for is not if you have done a master's degree in India or you have done it somewhere else. what they see is that once you submit your documents to the Canadian Alliance of Physiotherapy Regulators, they will review each and every document and see if your education is substantially equivalent to the Canadian education. Once that happens, you get a report which states, which has that statement, you know, and once that statement is there, you have to give your license exam, and once you are licensed, you are equivalent to a Canadian educated physiotherapist. So you do not have to really worry if the master's degree holds value or it doesn't. It does hold value. It does hold value in terms of credentialing and in terms of knowledge as well, because Indian courses are taught really well as well.
And I would kind of say to that too, you know, we do get students who apply for jobs all the time, or people who have just finished, so they are a fully licensed physiotherapist. And some of the things that we look for as an employer is, I mean, we look to see that you have done your master's or your doctorate or whatever it is in a field that is applicable to Canada. So if you are learning something that we can definitely see would cross over into Canada, really, really enticing for us to hire you. The other big thing that we look for is passing on your first attempt. So if we see that a student has passed on their first attempt for their written or for their practical, it's very, very enticing for us, because we know that student, number one, prepared very, very diligently. They didn't just go and take the exam and see how they would do, and they took it very seriously. So for us, when we see someone who has passed the written or the practical on the first time, that's another thing that we put a lot of value on, as well as what you've done for your degree. But okay, so we'll go on to licensure.
So once you're done with your PC exam theory as well as the practical component, once you pass, you are eligible to apply for a license with the provincial physiotherapy regulatory body. So you get a registration number and your license, and then you are free to apply for a job anywhere in the country. If you see the Alliance website, it clearly mentions that without your license number or registration number, please do not apply for jobs anywhere. So you only after you pass your license exam, you are available or you're eligible to apply for the provincial registration number and license. Thereafter, you can go to any facility of your choice if you want to work in a clinical setting or a hospital-based setting or a skilled nursing facility or any place of your choice and apply for the position, get through an interview, and I think you can get set to experience your first working day in Canada. So it's imperative that you have a license to work in Canada. Okay, coming to permanent residency. A lot of questions from permanent residency. There are 3 stages to permanent residency. One is documents, second is expression of interest, and third is invitation to apply. So what documents do you need to apply first? So you need a WES report, that's a World Education Service report, and an IELTS report. I mentioned the minimum score which you require for IELTS to get your maximum points is 8 in listening, 7 in speaking, reading, and writing. And for WES, you just need to submit all your documents from university to the WES center in Canada, and they process your Canadian equivalence, educational equivalence, and then they give a report to you within about 20 days. You need to take both these documents, okay, and submit it to your the government. Once that happens, you enter a pool, okay. So you create an express entry profile and provide all your details there. So there is a detailed form which you have to fill, and after you fill that form, a score is given to you. So say like if you get excellent score in your IELTS, so you would get about say 440 plus 4, and because the latest draw which was picked up was 438 and 440 is well above it, you would get your ITA in about couple of weeks. Once you get your ITA, you have to upload the remaining documents. There's a long list of documents, including your birth certificate, your degree certificates, and say, your passport and other things. So all your documents, including your medical reports and your police clearance certificate, has to be submitted along with the fees and to the Canadian government. Once that happens, you get an update from CIC, that's the Canadian Immigration Council, and they request for your passport. Your passport will be stamped with the permanent residency and given back to you. So this entire process takes about roughly about 6 months to happen. And I would like to mention that on the CIC website, the professional code for physiotherapists is 3142. So we are considered to be skilled workers in Canada, and we are eligible to apply for PR, which we get just within 6 months. And I think this is the fastest immigration which is present anywhere in the world for us today. If you see the US, it's making us wait for, like, the lottery system. Australians have stopped the work visa, and even other places, UK wants you to have your HCPC. I think permanent residency in Canada is the fastest way to migrate as of today. Khushbu, provincial number allows working only in that province, right? Yes, absolutely. You can work only in that province, and you will be working as a PT resident initially after your theory exam. So there are certain provinces which allow you to work using your provincial number as a PT resident. And once you clear your practical exam, you can work as a physical therapist. Yeah. So next we move on to what information is given on the Canadian Alliance website about permanent residency and jobs, and what information is given on the CIC. Okay, so Canadian Alliance clearly mentions that we are, eligible to have an express entry visa. That is your PR. Okay, so you are eligible to apply for it. And it is, if you see the second image there, it is not recommended that you accept a job offer as a physiotherapist in Canada before receiving your license to practice. So it is mandatory for you to have your license, to have passed your theory as well as practical exam before you even accept a job offer, right? So the third image tells you 3142. The code number for physiotherapists in Canada for immigration is 3142. And we are considered to be skilled workers. So, value for your profession. Immigration and citizenship, you can apply for PR, and not only for Indians, but for even for Nigerians, South Africans, and people from Dubai, anywhere in the world. You can apply for your PR, but not everybody gets the PR. That's also other thing. You need to apply for it, and it depends from case to case. You need to show substantial amount of funds in your bank so that they, cross-verify it, and then they allow you to come to Canada. That's only because once you reach Canada, you might not necessarily have a job on the first day. So to sustain yourself, you require that amount of money in your bank, right? So that's what the Canadian government also checks. So it makes sure that once you come to Canada, you don't face any difficulty. About jobs, there is a job bank which is present on the cic.gc.ca website, and it's a good way to start looking for jobs once you have your license with you, right? And the top corner one image tells you that there are various provinces which are present in Canada where you can apply license for, including Alberta, British Columbia, Manitoba, New Brunswick, Quebec, and others which are mentioned there. So, you have a list of provinces, you have a list of exam sites, you have a list of exam dates, you have deadlines, a lot of things to look at, but select what is the best for you, and I'm sure it would work out for you, So getting your PR and job becomes the last stage of the 5 steps that we talked about. And once you have got a job, I think you're all set to work, and registered physical therapist working in Canada and having a good life. Yeah. Ms. Proctor?
Yeah, is it not switching over for you?
Sorry. Yeah. So what? Yeah, you would say that. So what can you do when you are in India right now, right? So, or you are in Dubai right now. So what can you do? You need to start off with your credentialing process, okay? Immediately start off with your credentialing process with the Canadian Alliance. Fill the application form, pay $1,035 Canadian dollars via DD, and start off your credentialing process. Let them give you a list of documents which has to be submitted. As I mentioned earlier, the list which I had mentioned here is not all inclusive. You might have to submit more documents along with it, as your credentialing officer might suggest you to. While you are in India, you can focus on your studies in India, and the more you know, it is easier for you to prepare for the exam, right? So you can know your anatomy well, look for questions which are more anatomy based, because this is an entry level practice exam. Okay, so you can practice with multiple choice questions. There are many apps also, but I need to mention here that I had a recent question from one of the candidates asking if the apps which are present, that's the kind of questions which you would have on the PCE or the US exam. It's a big no. Those are not the kind of questions which are there, and I do not want to discuss about what kind of questions, but yeah, those are not the kind of questions. That's not the level of questions. Only when you take a mock exam with like PT exam prep, or you have a proper mock exam, you would know what kind of, or what is the level of questions that you would have. So I wish all of you good luck. I really wish to see you all in Canada soon, and we all can work as registered physical therapists there and make a good life.
Well, thank you so much, Amruta, and thank you so much for the people who joined us today. If you do have questions, we have some information here for you. On my website is ptprep.ca. I've given you my Canadian phone number there as well, and my Skype information. We do have office hours, however, we do respond to emails pretty much all the time. You can join us in our growing Facebook community, which is PT Exam Prep Student Forum. Amruta also can answer any questions, so we will definitely be sending you out an email afterwards with just a summary of some of the things that we have gone over. Other than that, we'll answer any questions that you do have. So just take a look here. So it looks like one of the questions is, what is the approximate monthly cost of living in Canada? Very difficult to say. I would say that if you are living in the West Coast, it is maybe a little bit more expensive. If you go to somewhere a little bit more rural, you might be looking at less of a cost. So Surrey is a great place to move to in the Vancouver or BC area. Calgary is also another place to move to in Alberta. Monthly wage, monthly cost of living, your rent is probably going to be around $1,000 to $1,500 Canadian dollars a month. I'm not too good at this. I don't really know. Honestly, I think the best thing to do would be to Google and to talk to people who have come to Canada and see kind of what their experiences are. So if I clear the theory exam on a tourist visa, can I do a job as a PT in Canada? Amruta, I'm going to let you cover that one.
Yeah, no, you cannot work as a PT in Canada on tourist visa at all. It's illegal to do so. If you clear your theory exam, the best bet would be you apply for a PR, get your PR, and work as a PT resident, right? But working on tourist visa is a big no. It's illegal to do so.
Okay, awesome. Alrighty, so we will be sending out the email to you guys today. If you do have any questions, please feel free to contact us. Otherwise, thank you so much for spending your Friday evening with us. It's Friday morning here in Vancouver. And since doing the webinar, the kind of cloudy weather has turned to lots of rain now. But anyways, it was great talking with all of you, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. I definitely look forward to helping you guys become physiotherapists in Canada. So thank you so much.
Thank you.